My name is Valerie Lannon. I'm with the International Socialists in the Toronto West Branch. It's a pleasure to see so many people out on this beautiful evening. We're very honored to have Myeengun Henry with us, and he's going to help us open the meeting in a good way. Myeengun?
Elders, our spiritual leaders, talked about, they said, when we bring our minds together, when we have that ability to sit in a room and discuss important issues, we have different ways of thinking, but when we are in very important discussions, we want to try to find a way to create our minds to work comfortably, because when we don't do that, our minds get away from the focus sometimes, and we end up in different areas that we shouldn't really be talking about. But when our elders said that we'd bring our minds together in a good way, they said that we talk to our Creator, and our Creator will give us this opportunity to keep us in focus and to give us a chance to acknowledge those who inspired you to become who you are today and the reasons that you're here tonight. So years ago, they told us that our language was non-relevant, in fact illegal in this country. So when my parents went to residential school, they didn't teach that to me because they were ashamed, because they thought it would be unnecessary for me. So I had to go to elders and I had to find out what they had to offer. And so now when I open up our council meetings, when we do community engagements and we talk to people in this manner, we do so in opening prayer. So I'd like to offer that for you tonight and acknowledge the traditional territory that we're on of the nations who lived here in the past and the ones in the future. So this language is something that if you haven't heard before, it becomes a part of me and my words to Creator for all of us. Abujo Myeengun and Dejnikas Deshkan Zibi Nonjaba Myeengun Getchimanado Chimigwechminwaka Kina Mampi Ganaju and Gijgat Nongo. Getchimanado Chimigwechminwaka Kina Mashkiki Osama Wingash Mashko de Wishmin Wagijik. Getchimanado Chimigwechminwaka Kina Mawaje Kakina Magiwin. Getchimanado Chimigwechminwaka Kina Wabanang Jawanong Epping Nishmokki Waitna. Getchimanado Chimigwechminwaka Kina Manda Minno Bamadaziwin. I ask our Creator to look after our elders, our medicines, and for all of our hearts tonight. Thank you.
Acknowledge that the land we're on is the territory of the Huron, Wendat, and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. So each speaker will speak for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have lots of time for discussion and questions. So without further ado, Myeengun.
Good evening. You know, I was thinking about it on the way here, and I passed a couple of pipelines on the way here, and I had to think about what I was going to say tonight. But you know, the story's been consistent in terms of what we're talking about recently. I come from a community just outside of London, Ontario. Chippewas of the Thames is our English name. We call ourselves Deshkan Zibi, which is people from the Antler River. And that word itself is really the reason that we're here. We take a look at a river that has fed our nation since time immemorial. In this region, we've had opportunities to use that river as a source of food, as a source of recreation, as a source of transportation. And we honor the river that provides us with our spirituality. If we go to the river, we give our tobacco, and we honor what Creator has given us. And that nation has been accompanied by many other nations in the region. We like to honor all of our family that comes from the Anishinaabeg regions, our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters, and our Lenni Lenape brothers and sisters in the region. and I always honor them as we are all working toward the same goal of keeping our Mother Earth healthy and safe. It wasn't that long ago when we heard that there was a new form of transportation traveling through our traditional territory. If I can put it in perspective, our traditional territory runs basically, well, this is just a legal understanding. It's actually a lot larger than that, but if you can picture Godridge area all the way down to Turkey Point and over to Windsor is what we identified in our recent Bear Creek land claim as our traditional territory, but it encompasses right into the United States and surrounding areas. But we use that for this particular land case, land claim. But this region here was our territory where we hunted and fished and supplied ceremonies and opened doorways up for our brothers and sisters and allowed ourselves to use this land in a very comforting way. For generations and generations, it's our spiritual most important part of being is to keep that land healthy and safe. And that was our role, and that still is our role today. But 40 years ago, this technology came through that they decided to transport oil from Montreal to Sarnia. And we weren't really in a position to understand that pipeline as it went through it. It came in kind of rapidly, and they put that pipeline in, and our people were just coming out of the residential school phase error, was what I call it, and definitely a time in our history when they kept things kind of away from our attention. But as that pipeline came in and traveled through our traditional territory, we didn't have really a whole lot of information about it. But we found out that it's been traveling through for 40 years now. We moved the clock forward a little bit, and we start to see, I guess in our community, we had hired a lands and environment department. It was kind of out of our own source revenue to be able to look at our land environment, and we started seeing how the system operated in terms of being an intervener in some of the hearings and learning more about environmental protections and us being a part of that. We found out that there were some hearings taking place on the Line 9 Enbridge pipeline that was traveling through our territory, and we didn't really know how that system worked, but we had some very dedicated and educated people that were helping our band council make decisions. We decided to be a participant in the Line 9 hearings that were held here in Toronto, and we learned very clearly about our role. We had hired legal opinion to give us some background on what we should be presenting there on traditional land use studies and our role. We know very clearly that our main role, though, it's of a spiritual nature, and that land is ours to protect as hard as we can. But we went into this hearings that the National Energy Board had put on and found out very clearly that this is a role that we have to take a deeper, more attention to, because the request at the National Energy Board was they would change the flow of oil that's running through all the way from from Sarnia to Montreal, right through rivers and lakes and right through homes and daycares and places where our kids attend, schools, and right here in the city of Toronto near the Finch subway station, very close to that. So I guess during that process we learned that that pipeline had a life expectancy of 40 years when it first went into the ground, and we're almost 40 years later. They wanted to ask the National Energy Board to reverse the flow and to increase the capacity of this pipeline from 240,000 barrels per day to 300,000 barrels per day. It didn't take us long to figure out that with that change, more pressure on a 40-year-old pipeline that's seen its life expectancy is going to create danger and probably break someplace. We are so concerned about our river and our traditional medicines in our area, that we decided that we didn't feel that it was right for this process to approve the pipeline. The National Energy Board, we started looking toward it and to see why do they have the authority to approve a pipeline such as this. We started looking at our legal opinion again, and we found out that in the Constitution of Canada, under Section 35, there's a piece of information in there that says anything that adversely affects First Nations and territories, there needs to be a consultation process with the First Nation, and they call it duty to consult. Duty to consult was never triggered with our First Nation on any of these activities, so we've asked the Government of Canada to please give us a call, give us an email, let us know, what your intentions are, because we disagree with this approval of new oil coming through this line that comes from the tar sands. We feel that the tar sands oil has no place in our traditional territory, and because of the nature of it, became a lot more dangerous than the light crude that they were traveling previously. And when Canada acknowledged that they did not consult with our nation, we decided to take them to court and prove that this was not properly done and we weren't consulted properly, as is the responsibility of the Constitution. So we went to court, lower court. It was the Federal Court of Appeals, and we gave our argument that we didn't feel it was right for Canada to ignore their Constitution. 3 judges in that court case were there, and the 2 judges that sided against our opinion, and 1 judge dissented in that decision and said that it shouldn't have been done that way. Canada should have at least consulted with Chippewas of the Thames before they approved the reversal and bringing tar sands oil into that line. So this judge had given us a little bit of information that he did. When we got the factum back from him, it was filled with new information that we didn't even have, and we were able to supply new information and take our case to the Supreme Court of Canada. So we made an application to the Supreme Court, and what I understand is 5% of the total applications to the Supreme Court get approved. So we didn't think our chances were very strong that we would do that. So we decided that we would talk to another nation in the north. They're called Clyde River, who are going through very similar circumstances as we are in terms of duty to consult in their seismic testing and none of it. We decided that if we spoke together and went to court, at least on the same principle, we might have a better chance. And we did. We got accepted into the Supreme Court of Canada. Our court date will be November 30th of this year. We have a greater ability now to demonstrate the faults within the system that we weren't a part of. We think that this is an important factor because our role isn't just against the constitutional negligence that Canada provided. Our role is, like I said earlier, a very spiritual role in keeping protection of our Mother the Earth. And in that traditional territory that I talked about is our responsibility to look after, to make sure that she stays healthy and safe, even if corporations come in and destroy it in many ways. We are still the ones who are spiritually responsible for that land. So ultimately, we need to take the front line in terms of getting this, protection of the land solidified. And if the laws are subject to that, then let's keep Canada to that reasoning. So that's where we stand with the courts, and we don't know where it's going to go. It's going to be challenging. We're fighting corporations. We're fighting, a profitability that seems to takes more importance than the actual land itself. So we decided at our nation that it would be in the best interest of us, and not just First Nations, but everybody who's along that line to show interest or have interest in this scenario. And we will be doing a campaign over the summer, coordinating rallies in terms of getting people's understanding to help with this, I guess, a terrible display of their own constitution. You don't just put those things in the constitution and neglect them. To me, I would feel very appalled that a government would do that, in this case, especially affecting First Nations, because we have previous treaties, we have relationships with governments that continue to be unattended and neglected. But this generation is starting to evolve in a stronger way. Line 9 is just the opening of our activities in the future. We know that there are other corporations and companies that we have to look at. We've already put a couple other, Hydro One for one, and Union Gas on notice that we understand that they're also running these types of things through our territory and without our consult. So it's already triggered actions amongst other corporations that we're not going to sit down any longer. We're going to stand up for the rights of our people. We're going to stand up for our mother, the earth. Line 9 is just the trigger that will activate the government to build a consultation process, which they don't have. And we understand during the time when we were talking about going to court that the Minister of Indian Affairs, Aboriginal Affairs, whatever they call themselves now, we're trying to pull the chiefs together to build a consultation process. And of course, the chiefs didn't attend those meetings, but it told us that they don't have a process in place. So as the new pipelines are being proposed in this country, Energy East and the Kinder Morgan pipelines, this case is going to set precedent. It's going to be a historical decision based on recognition of traditional territory all throughout Canada. It's going to be a very important factor when those traditional territories get ignored when projects are approved that cause damage in those territories. So we think it's a very important time. This court case that will be coming up, it's going to be and how I look at it is I'm seeing allyships happen all across the pipeline and beyond. People that didn't know that the dangers of this pipeline lives in their backyard, under the rivers, under the lakes that they swim in, the water that they drink, and the children that play in that water are in danger. So we definitely have an opportunity now to come together as nations to look after the best interests of our future, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. And I'll be driving off to New Orleans tonight after this meeting to help with our allyship along the pipeline that leads into the Gulf of Mexico, who are struggling with issues that have gone under the radar in the spills that keep happening out that way that we don't even hear about. So we're creating allies internationally. We're going to create a video and talk about the struggles that people have as we go on with our lives daily and not even realizing the dangers that exist right in our backyard. We need to let people know about that. And as First Nations people, we're taking this very seriously. We'll continue to create this campaign to allow people to understand what is necessary for us to build a better future for all of us without the dangers that exist today. So that in a nutshell, it goes a lot farther, but for the amount of time I have to spend with you tonight, Chippewas of the Thames First Nation is going to continue to fight for all of our safety and most preciously, our beautiful Mother the Earth. Thank you very much.